Welcome to Gold Coast Insider, where we bring you business insights, stories, opportunities, and forecasts from movers and shakers across the Gold Coast. I'm your host, Estella Rodiguero. I'm CEO of Regional Development Australia Gold Coast. Welcome to another episode of Gold Coast Insider Podcast. We're thrilled to have Duncan Jones, founder and CEO of Myriad Studios, a cutting-edge visual effects company that's bringing some of the world's biggest films to life, including Aquaman, The Fall Guy, and Kong versus Godzilla. Here on the Gold Coast, RDA connects businesses with opportunities, innovation, and helps grow our region sustainably. And Duncan's work with Myriad perfectly showcases how local industry is making a global impact, from film and TV to spinal research, immersive sports experiences, and even Brisbane 2032. So don't forget to like, subscribe for more episodes. Welcome, Duncan. It's great to have you back on the podcast. It's been a few years.
G'day, Estella. Yes, it's really nice to be back.
So as founder and CEO of Myriad, what was the vision behind creating the company, and what gap did you see in the screen industry, or was it initially about the screen industry?
Well, I'd already been working in the film industry for about close to 20 years at the time. And, we always see changes and growth in any industry, but within the film industry, we were radically moving towards a digitization of everything. So at that time I was working in locations and I could start to see that a lot of locations were having digital twins created. The people making those twins were companies from offshore out of Australia. And I thought there was a great opportunity to generate that knowledge and that technology here on the Gold Coast.
Excellent. So I'm going to jump straight into it because you're working with Griffith University, and this is where I got highlighted the other night when you did a presentation with Perry Cross, and you're working with Griffith on a project called BioSpine. So how is Myriad's technology supporting people with spinal cord injuries? I mean, we saw Myriad in the film and screen industry, but the diversification's been amazing. We'll talk to a couple of those, that diversification, but how is it supporting this industry, the spinal cord injuries?
Yeah, I mean, well, in almost every element of filmmaking, there is application that happens on a film set that you could technically translate into the real world. So with Myriad, we specialize in capturing environments, people and places and props and turning them into 3D digital twins that can be used as part of the visual effects pipeline. But at Griffith University down here on the Gold Coast, they had a project, and they still do, called BioSpine, where they take patients in wheelchairs who have spinal cord injuries, and they, through a rehabilitation process, push them through a VR and a physical simulation to help try and stimulate a healing process. And I got to know the guys that were doing that project, and we collaborated on, scanning the patients in their wheelchairs and turning them to upright and able-bodied real photo-like twins of these patients, and then putting those patients into real photoreal environments and having that as part of their rehabilitation process. And it's been quite a successful collaboration so far. It's still at the early days, but it's going really well.
So exciting, isn't it, to see how it can diversify and the different fields. But how is applying film industry or film-based technology, I guess it is, to health and rehabilitation, has that influenced your approach to innovation and obviously problem solving, or is it just the same?
Well, it's the same application, just in a different setting. And I suppose that's again what's so unique about the film industry is that each film we work on has a completely new script and a completely new team. And so from the start, we are used to being innovators. We're used to collaborating really fast, taking a problem and working out how quickly to solve that in a creative way. And so the team at Myriad here are used to being thrown in the deep end with a lot of complicated things. But it's particularly unique to be part of BioSpine because we're actually changing people's lives. We're having an impact on the world in a small way, even if it's just through digital twins, and the BioSpine team do all the heavy lifting. So fantastic opportunity for us to use what we learn on a film set and apply that to real world problems.
So you're also doing some incredible work around that photoreal digital twins of athletes and stadiums and venues and environments. You need to talk me through that a little bit. How does that technology transform that sports experience? And I guess that's particularly relevant coming into Brisbane 2032.
Yeah, I mean, Queensland's in such a wonderful place right now. We've got so many different things happening, and the technology we've got, yes, we're applying it to even athletes and a range of different sporting codes. The technology that we have is so accurate. We can zoom into a scanned character's face, a real person's face, and see down to their pores and whether they've had a really good shave or not that day. And so having that really accurate data from a biometrics perspective is particularly useful to, a range of high level sports codes. So we're starting to dabble in that level of thinking as well.
And of course, let's talk about those venues and stadiums. We're seeing the transformation of the viewer experience into sports. Like it's rapidly changing, isn't it? And because we're seeing overhead visuals of live sporting events, and they zero in, they can tone in and zone in, I should say. So how is that technology going to move forward? And do you see it like the experience from the spectator point of view getting far greater.
Yeah, I mean, again, we come from an entertainment mindset straight away. We work in the entertainment industry. So we first think about, well, how could you engage fans better, quicker, cleaner, and at a wider range? So not just being the fans at the venue, but fans outside of the venue or in another country in a different time zone. So we have applications for that. Then you have the venue themselves. There's a range of different uses for our technology there, whether it's from you know, management and planning of those environments or those stadiums. How do you move people around? How do you get resources to the right places? How many hot dogs can you get in a certain place at a certain time? How do the fans move out in times of emergency or just finishing the event? So there's that level of applications. And then there's just the specific infrastructure. Our technology traditionally comes from an engineering perspective. So designing the stadiums, looking at the safety and the structure of those. So, yeah, so Myriad is now being involved in a whole range of different applications from the Olympics coming forward, whether that's from athletes, fans, or from environments.
Wow.
Pretty cool. Yeah, we're having a
Yeah,
lot of fun with it.
actually, it's really exciting when you think about it. So it almost makes this sort of technology is baseline in the development of these venues, isn't it? It's a really vital part of that design of these buildings, which it never used to be. Used to be a very static view of how venues were designed, but now it's becoming really interactive. And I guess they can see
Yeah.
exactly, and problem solving can be seen on the spot in almost in a live environment.
Yeah, I mean, in early filmmaking days, if I can use that as an example, we
Yeah.
used to make models. We would make a model of the set and we would, piece it all together. And I'm sure they did that way back in the pyramids days. They would have had a bunch of rocks and built it up so it had the right shape and size. And nowadays we do it in a digital form. So
Yeah.
it gives us far more scope of in every aspect. So measurement, simulation, twin technology is really right up there. One day there'll be something else and we'll all embrace that. But for now, this is what we've got to work with.
From your perspective, how would you describe the strength and maturity of the screen industry in our region?
Well, I mean, Gold Coast, as you may have heard recently, in the last 12 months, has now surpassed all the other states as being the most prolific filmmaking state in Australia.
Mm.
So, yeah, we're all pretty proud of weighing in on that.
Yeah.
So, just under $1 billion last year turnover in Queensland. So yeah, we're going really well and going strong. But it's not just Queensland's great. It's because we're sort of at this point of the perfect sunrises or sunshine, as I'd like to call it, where we've got great environments and great locations to film in. We've got fantastic film crews that are now at a mature and it's very skilled level. But it's all being driven as well by state and federal incentives that are now being legislated and put in place. So there's a lot of confidence and assurity from overseas filmmakers coming to Queensland to know that they'll be able to deliver the film that they want.
So, but we talk about it being a billion-dollar screen industry, which is incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
But there's flow-on effects, isn't there? There's sort of like these flow-on impacts into different sectors. So the flow-on effect for jobs, supply chains, and small businesses, is that part of that story for the Gold Coast? And
Yeah.
how much of it is for the Gold Coast?
Well, I mean, I'm just a small vendor and a small business
Mm.
supplier as part of that. So I'm testimony to the success of the industry and how it knocks on. The high level numbers, you'd have to talk to someone else at state or local. But, you know, a lot of friends and a lot of families that I know have all survived and had a great working life based on the film industry here on the Gold Coast. The Gold Coast really is such a wonderful place to make a movie. Coming back to environments, if you sit right here at Village Roadshow Studios, in half an hour, you could be in a rainforest that could be simulating South America. You can go to the beach environment and simulate, coastal beaches in Florida and Miami. You could go an hour north into Brisbane, and next thing you know, you're in New York City. So, with the imagination of the film crews and this such diverse amount of locations within a short space of time, it really is a very sustainable place to make a film.
We caught up the other day. One of the things you mentioned was you like to keep it all local. So if you're going to work with a company, you first and foremost try and keep that company local. And I guess there's a few reasons for that. A is that they're very, very approachable. I mean, you can get to them really quickly. But that whole emphasis for keeping it local, trying to engage locally is a really important aspect of it, isn't it?
Yeah, like filmmakers, again, we are locals and
Yeah.
we want a sustainable work and pipeline. So, I know the construction guys get to know really well where to get the best timber from locally, and the electricians also know where to get the right lights and electricity equipment for that. So we all look after each other. We all create an ecosystem that's sustainable, because again, that supports a better product when Warner Brothers or Netflix or whoever wants to make a film locally comes down. They know that the pipeline, everything's organised already, and we can work with the short time frames that we're often given.
So, Duncan, we keep talking about the screen industry, and every time I think about it, I think of film, right? And we do have some massive films that have happened, but there's a lot of series and that have done here as well, isn't there? Or there's some.
Yeah, I mean, people forget when we talk about film now, it's really classed under screen. So
Mhm.
anything you find on a screen is really part of our bread and butter.
Mhm.
And within that whole collective group of screen, there's multiple layers. So there's people who work on the large feature films.
Yep.
There's people who work on smaller budget feature films, and there's the TVCs, the TVs, the TV commercials, and you've got,
Yeah, cool.
you know, the like the YouTubers. There's layer after layer after layer. And
Yeah.
on the Gold Coast, we have all those layers. So, one day we might run into a guy at a conference that's just making YouTube content, and he's making a sustainable business out of that, right through to companies like mine, many larger international companies that are now starting to call the Gold Coast home. We have this huge ecosystem that's wonderful and growing.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Because we do see all the big headliners, we do see all the stars, we like to watch out for them, the Jack Blacks and everyone of the world, but there's so much more to it. So, how do you see the region's screen industry evolving on a global scale? So we are actually really global now, but how do you see that evolving? Do you see that, expanding far greater?
Yeah, this is just from again a
Yeah,
personal
yeah. Hmm,
perspective, but you know, I would like to think that one day my children choose to work in the film industry. It's a very easy pipeline for them or path for them to take. We're lucky here on the Gold Coast. We have some fantastic institutions now that focus on screen training. So whether it's Griffith University or Bond or QUT up in Brisbane, all have courses that dedicated towards training up the youth, the filmmakers of tomorrow. So that's very exciting that they can see that path. Then within the film industry, it is exponentially growing. The Gold Coast is now having a second studio built. So we will probably have the highest concentration of studios in the Southern Hemisphere here on the Gold Coast.
mhm.
So there is a long term path. There's a lot of people now investing in infrastructure, in training, and in future filmmaking that is all happening here on the coast.
Yeah, so it's growing, isn't it? So rapidly. So, but
Yeah.
then that brings me to that point. Like, we are so lucky to live on the Gold Coast. Like, there's every day I'm thankful I live here. How important is it that people realize that they actually don't have to leave here if they want to build a really good career in film? And I guess it's not just film. There's other. We've got everything here on the Gold Coast. But how important is that for people to realize?
Yeah, I mean, I do say that about the Gold Coast. It's one of those really unique and rare places in the world where it doesn't matter what your dream job is or what you want to be, you can achieve it here on the coast. We've got theme parks that have dolphin trainers in it. I work in the film industry. There's everything from high end athletes that live and we've got swimmers, football players, all that, right through to the professional sectors. We've got everything from high level legal and accounting firms. We've got the tourism industry, and then we go all the way through to bioscience and the biomedical industry, which is exponentially growing as well. So whatever you want to achieve, you can achieve it here
Mm.
on the Gold Coast. Top of that, on your weekends, you can go surfing, mountain biking, rock climbing. You name it, we can do it here on the coast.
So if we talk about opportunities on the Gold Coast, where do you see the biggest untapped opportunities, not just within screen, but across the broader ecosystem?
Yeah, I suppose, like, tangibly, it's very hard for me to say, but I like to think of
Mm.
a more holistic perspective in the sense that,
Yeah.
as long as we don't limit ourselves by imagination, everything's an opportunity here on the coast. So I just think that it's a case of, and we do have wonderful support from government sector here on the Gold Coast to have an ecosystem where different industries and different sectors can come together. And there's a range of professional and social engagements that happen on the coast, and we all get to know each other and talk, which is again how BioSpine came about, being part of the film industry and vice versa. Even though we're a small city and we're
Yeah.
still rapidly growing, I think that we do punch well above our weight, and we always have on the Gold Coast. It's always been a city of innovation, and I think based on that foundation, we're only going to grow stronger and stronger.
And we definitely are a city of giving everyone a go, aren't we? I mean, if you can dream it, you can do it here on the Gold Coast. Well, you can try to do it on the Gold Coast, and more times than not, you'll manage. So it is a city that really supports ideas and new ideas and people who want to have a go at different things.
Yeah, you and I were talking the other day about how remarkable and fantastic SeaWorld came about.
Yeah.
Who would have thought anywhere else in Australia you'd have a theme park like SeaWorld? And at its time, it was pretty innovative, and nowadays we sort of take it for granted. But that's a clear, demonstration of how the Gold Coast has always been an innovative place. It's always open for new ideas, and that people, yeah, they do invest in that and give it a red hot go. Myriad is such a small little company in such a huge industry, but again, we've had wonderful support from the locals, and so it's a stepping stone. And from that, we use that opportunity to help train the new filmmakers coming through, giving them opportunities they wouldn't normally get, to innovate technology that you don't find regularly in Australia, and to compete on a global scale. We give the big guys overseas a run for their money.
So, Duncan, looking ahead, where do you see the biggest growth opportunity to push beyond that billion-dollar benchmark?
Well, I think it's just more of the same. We again just keep leaning into providing good product, and in way of product, I mean making good films.
Yeah.
Because we've all seen a bad film, so it's actually quite hard to get that formula right, and that only can really come from good teams, good planning, good support. So I think keep leaning into that. The investment in the new studio infrastructure is a fantastic thing that will only give us exponentially more space to work and make film.
Mhm.
And I think then founding on that is then this education piece of keeping the supply of good filmmakers on the coast. Again, there's always that concern that once you've hit a certain point in your career, you've got to go out of state. Well, now we don't really have that. So yeah, I think if there's sustained business and a sustained infrastructure to support that, will keep those people in town.
So that leads me to the whole workforce and future pipeline. What does the industry need in terms of workforce to support that industry, the economy?
Well, again, it's a little bit outside of my pay scale to talk on wider issues from the screen industry.
Yeah.
But when I talk to colleagues in all departments of a film set, they're all asking for good people. Myriad's always looking for good people. So, and good people is not just having a skill, not having the ability to use your hands on a particular tool, but having all those other sweet spots that makes a good employee. Turning up on time, having the right attitude, being professional when you're around other filmmakers. But those things are kind of the hard part to find. And so, yeah, if you've got all that secret sauce, then I'm sure you'll be fine in the industry.
So RDA is actively fostering links between education and industry. What do you see as the opportunities for young people to enter into this, screen productions or screen career?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. I'm invited along to a lot of the tertiary institutions and TAFEs and even schools to talk about vocations in the film, trying to inspire them not to give up. It seems like it's such out of reach to work in a film or on a big budget film, but again, on the Gold Coast, it's under our nose all day, every day. A lot of the times you don't realise, but so I just say to them, never give up. If that's your dream, then focus hard on that.
Mhm.
If you can go to university, do that if that's what's going to lead you down the path you need. But aside from that, get to know people in the industry. Ask your neighbours, your friends, who do you know? Because again, everyone's closely related on the Gold Coast and also in Sydney and in Melbourne, everywhere in Australia. It's quite a small industry once you start asking. So first and foremost, don't ever give up, and then focus on what you're good at, because it doesn't matter what you do and what you like doing. We will need that skill in the film. You'd be quite surprised how, we need everyone who loves numbers. Accountants are very short in the film industry, right through to people who love working on computer games, which is basically my company. We're a visual effects company, love working with pixels and computers. So, and then right through to the guys that manage all the infrastructure, the trucks, the electrics. There is every skill and every dream job available in the films.
And actually, can we circle back to that? Because I think when we look at these films being produced, there's a lot of people behind the scenes, isn't it? It employs a lot of staff. Is there a ballpark that you can talk to us about how many people would go into the making of a film here?
Yeah, I mean, the big tentpole films, that we call
Yeah.
them poles because they're so big, they'd hold up the pole of a tent. They sometimes can have easily 300-400 core crew. And then outside of that, then you have supporting infrastructure like, supporting companies. And that's not even going through to the post-production side of things, which is the visual effects and editing. They have, again, hundreds of people involved in that. So the touch points on a film can easily, hire, a couple of thousand people if it gets the right scope and right budget. Right down to really small TV commercials might just have 2 or 3 people. So again, there's so many opportunities at so many different layers of the industry. It's just
Yeah.
finding what you really want to do and what you like doing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, future, Duncan, in your view, what is it about the Gold Coast and probably Southeast Queensland that stands out to you now, right now?
From a film perspective, industry perspective,
Yeah, yeah, from an industry.
yeah, I mean, again, as I keep saying, it's like the perfect ray of sunshine. We've got perfect weather, perfect places, perfect people, and we're all being supported by a great government that's driving this incentive package. So, yeah, we're
Mm.
quite lucky down here in Queensland.
And what would you say to anyone from just a purely Gold Coast point of view, from your own owning a business and living on the Gold Coast?
Well, I love it. My family loves it. We're fortunate that we can have a sustainable business that does, you know, engage people and grow people
Mm.
within the business, but also give our family a great lifestyle,
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
sunshine, on the sand, and in the water.
yeah. There's a good work-life balance to it, isn't there, on the
Yeah.
Gold Coast? So, final question. Where do you see the Gold Coast being positioned in 5 years' time in the industry? Like, it's gotta be so exciting, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, again, I've been in it for so long, so
Yeah.
it's not an overnight success, and I don't think there's any radical great changes in the next 5 years. I think, we've been doing this for a while now here. We understand how to sustainably make this business work and also how to make it grow. We are all collectively in the industry here marketing ourselves and positioning ourselves as being leaders in the global industry.
Mm,
And so I think again it's more of the same. Keep growing young people into being, highly skilled and highly professional
mm,
so that we can keep that good product going forward. Keep government support growing and going, because it doesn't work without that, and having a community, the wider local Gold Coast community, understand that this is a business that's worth supporting. We don't want to end up in a place where the locals don't want us parking on their street to make a movie because it's all been too hard. So it's got to be that ecosystem that supports everything, socially, economically, culturally,
mm,
education.
mm.
And I think that's the bigger thing that we need to keep talking about moving forward in the next 5, 10, 20 years here on the Gold Coast.
Duncan, we keep talking about the film industry here on the Gold Coast, and we keep seeing these great films that are being done around the Gold Coast. But there's a lot of companies on the Gold Coast that get contracted to deliver outside of the Gold Coast and globally.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, it's an export success. The Gold Coast has a lot of filmmakers that call the Gold Coast home, and even Southeast Queensland home,
Mm,
but do work all over the world internationally, delivering great film services. So, Myriad does have team right now overseas working away. We've, in the last few years been in multiple countries. I was in the Cayman Islands, which sounds terribly romantic, but I couldn't wait to get back to the Gold Coast. So yeah, so we are fostering a really highly skilled team now that's desired overseas. And then on the flip side of that, we've got some amazing filmmakers that now want to call the Gold Coast home. So I mean, Baz Luhrmann's probably the most well-known name that we could say there. So he's working out of the coast now quite often. So again, it's not just this beautiful city that we live in, but it's all this other layers of skill and professionalism and infrastructure that's now coming into the Gold Coast that makes it a perfect film environment.
Hmm. Thank you. So exciting times in Gold Coast screen industry, isn't there? So any last words for anyone hoping to get on board with the Gold Coast screen industry?
Never give up.
Sounds very wise, actually. So thank you very much for your time today. Look, the screen industry on the Gold Coast is not just a billion-dollar success story. It's a catalyst for innovation, jobs, cross-sector growth, positioning our region as a global powerhouse of the future. So don't miss an episode. Discover the innovators and industries shaping our Gold Coast future. Thank you so much, Duncan.
Good on you, Stella.
Thanks for listening today. For a complete list of podcast episodes and transcripts, go to rdagoldcoast.org.au/podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter.